Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today I am going to be diving deeper into Dungeons & Dragons Onslaught, the new miniatures game from WizKids, and I've already done an unboxing as well as a how to play on this game, but I wanted to do a proper review and kind of summarize all of the pros and cons, everything that I liked, everything that I didn't like, and bring to you a full review of Dungeons & Dragons Onslaught. If you like this video and you want more content for games like Dungeons & Dragons Onslaught or other tabletop and miniatures games, I invite you to subscribe. Plus, we are doing a brand new giveaway for a $25 Amazon gift card that you can put towards a gaming expansion of your choice. If you want to enter to win that, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive into Dungeons & Dragons Onslaught. Again, big thanks to WizKids for sending out this review copy. I am definitely excited to see what's next for Dungeons & Dragons Onslaught. But let's go ahead and talk about everything in the core box and give you my review.
So Dungeons & Dragons Onslaught is a miniatures game that features one side versus another side. It's a two-player miniatures game, but it's more than just a death match because in addition to having your team versus the other team, there's also a mission scenario that you're going to have to complete, and it might be, to get the most loot or get the most points, or it may be to get to a place, like get to one of these fancy objective places on the map, maybe get there first, or maybe to capture something. And so all of this, there are lots of different scenarios, but in addition to those scenarios, in addition to the other adventuring party that has entered into the dungeon, there are also monsters in the dungeon, and the monsters are pretty indiscriminate. They're going to go after all of you. The gnolls and the dragon, there's a giant black dragon, right? And they want to kill both of you. And so you have some interesting choices when you are making this game, in that you have to sometimes choose whether or not to follow the mission. Sometimes you have to choose whether or not to attack monsters or ignore monsters, or lead monsters towards the enemy team, or to attack the enemy team directly. Certain scenarios reward more or less points for doing either one of these, so the scenario is going to largely kind of give you an indication of what might be most beneficial to you. But ultimately, as the player, it's your decision to make. You're going to be fielding a team of either the Zhentarim or the Harpers, and you're going to be fielding a team of 5 characters for most games. Now, each of these factions does come with 6 characters. Each character has a board, a character board here that is going to have all of their basic information. Like we've talked about in the Learn to Play video, you're going to have any melee or ranged attacks up here with different symbols that are going to be relevant depending on the type of damage or the type of attack. It's going to tell you the range. Most melee attacks are just adjacent, so 1 space away, although some of them have reach that can hit up to 2 spaces away. If you roll a 20 on the special dice, it's going to have your faction symbol on there in place of the 20. So the Zhentarim have, of course, the little dragon symbol there. And that's going to be a critical effect. And then every character has their own special critical effect. You also have these really cool dials that are going to not only tell you your character's movement, armor, and health, and of course, as the health decreases, that and other stats can potentially change. Once you get into the red, you might notice, oh, well, now I'm slower as I'm getting, sometimes the armor class goes up as you're getting lower as well, but that's not necessarily exactly the same on every character. But you also have cooldown dials at the bottom. Every character has some type of reactionary ability, which means, and for most characters, it's if you, some type of opportunity attack. If you move away from me, I get to attack you, but that's only once per round. So once I move this, I'm going to set this to a cooldown of 1. And at the end of every round, my cooldowns will decrease. And this is going to be more relevant on larger things, like, for example, this being a bard trying to grant an inspiration, regarding there's bardic inspirations. You can do that and then set your cooldown timer to 5 in this case, and then each round those will cool down. A lot of these, that might mean that this could in chance be a once per game ability, or if you do it early enough, maybe you can do it twice in a game. And some characters have abilities that are going to reduce their cooldowns faster than usual, which is especially cool when it happens to work and you're able to get off maybe a really big ability 3 times in a game due to some of those. So these cooldown parts of the dial are really cool ways to give a character like a heroic moment. And this is something that I really like about this game. You know, your characters have their own natural abilities. Some characters even have passive abilities that always apply. Characters have different ways of getting experience. Experience is really cool because we have special cards for XP. Every different character has 2 experience cards with both their color and their silhouette on the back. And when you level up, when you gain 5 experience, you're able to choose one of these and have that special bonus. Sometimes it's increasing your armor class. Sometimes it's giving you a once per game ability. Sometimes it's giving you like a multiple ability, like a little bit of an armor class and also maybe extra damage. Sometimes it modifies one of your existing abilities. This one just gives this character +1 speed. This one gives this character +3 defense. You know, and so like there's all different types of effects that can happen with these. And this is typically a once per game thing. So every time you play even a specific character, maybe next time you'll choose the opposite level up, and it can affect your play style. A lot of the characters have they kind of have a specific strength, but a lot of them can be played multiple ways. For example, this bard has both melee and ranged attacks. I could concentrate them more on being a healer or more of an inspiration based character, or have them attacking a little bit more. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of play their characters, especially based on how your opponent plays, if you have to play reactionary to them, or if you are focusing more on the scenario. Activation uses initiative. However, there's no duplicates in initiative. So there's 10 cards for 2 teams of 5, and you will roll to see who gets the first initiative. They'll assign that to one character, and then they're going to kind of deal all out of the rest of the initiative cards. However, you do kind of split things up. So you can't end up with just like all the worst initiative or all of the best initiative. You do 1 through 6 in one pile, minus the 1, because somebody will have won that. And then you're going to do 7 through 8 in another pile, and you're going to deal those out half and half. And basically, that kind of makes sure that, you know, somebody isn't going to be able to activate all of their characters before somebody else activates any of theirs. So you have a little bit of mitigation in that. But these are going to be placed face down, with the exception of the initiative 1. So you won't know which one of my, like if I get the 2, my opponent might not know which one I'm going to do for 2, because again, they'll all be face down until I go to activate somebody. But in addition to player initiative, there's also monster initiative. And monster initiatives all have a 0.5. And these are going to be indicated by the scenario. We'll take a look at some of the different scenarios. But basically, monsters will always go in between player activations. And monsters have a card that's kind of similar to the player boards. Monsters have their movement, their armor class, and their attacks, their health total down here. And since they don't have a scrolling wheel for their health, we have little damage tokens that they're going to use for those. But that's kind of how the monsters work. A lot of the monsters have multiple forms. So if you notice, we had the armored gnoll, which is a little bit more powerful than just our basic gnoll. And that allows for a single model and a single card to have multiple different versions. So you're going to see, like maybe in the first scenario, you might see a regular gnoll, and you might see armored gnolls in a more difficult scenario or more of an advanced scenario. Some of our more fearsome enemies have their own character boards similar to the players, except you'll notice instead of being turned this way, they're more upright, more vertical boards. You do still have speed. Now, there is a dial on here for speed in case the speed were to change by some effect, but also the same goes for the armor class as well. But what is going to go down is the health. But you're going to have all of that because these mobs typically have a lot more health than you have health tokens, so this is helpful for that. Also, it allows you to have more information on the card than might fit on a small card. These are also double-sided, so while I have a young Etten, I also have an Etten, and we have special things that will happen when somebody gets into the red. You notice how characters had their own red section? Well, some of the more fearsome monsters have their own red section, and this allows them to be enraged. And so basically, once this guy gets to 15 health, he kind of changes and he gets a little angry, and so that special effects will go into effect there. We have the same thing with the young troll versus the troll that's not so young, the aged troll. And we have differently. We have of course, the dragon themselves, which has one side for flying and a different side for on the ground. And so those are our 3 big bads in here, though there are multiple different cards for different types of monsters, like our little kobolds have theirs as well. All right, so activating a character is actually pretty simple. Every player character has one of each of the 3 actions. They're going to have a standard action, a move action, and a bonus action. Standard action being the most powerful, move action being in the middle, and a bonus action kind of being the cheapest. Any of those actions can be downgraded, so you can downgrade a standard action, which is usually an attack. You can downgrade an attack for an extra move, or you can downgrade a move for an extra bonus action. Bonus actions are usually meant to trigger some kind of special ability that you might have, even though it's got a cooldown. You can use that to, hey, I can make my weapons magical for this turn. That's going to be pretty cool, but it's got a 5-turn cooldown, so we'll set that to the 5 there. That might be my bonus action. But the other thing you can do a bonus action for is to open a chest. We're going to have these little treasure chests all over the place, and this is a very interesting part of the game. It's very important because when you pull a treasure chest, you are able to then go to the big envelope, and you can pull out 3 of the little loot tokens. You can look at them, choose one, and put it back. So when you're pulling out your loot tokens, you don't want to pull out more than you need. So you kind of reach in blindly and do this, although you can just kind of lay them face down on the table. You don't have to use the envelope. Normally, you're just going to look at 2 of them. You look at 3 of them. If there's a red one, which is kind of like a hazard, then that's going to trump, it's going to kind of stop the process and you have to go with that. But they'll be scenario driven. So the scenario will tell you what types of loot to include and what types of loot you're not going to include. But let's say there wasn't like a mimic in there that was going to turn the chest into a giant mimic, which of course could always happen. You would then choose one of these and then you'd go to the deck of loot cards and be able to see what they might do. Like, for example, like this might, I don't know which one this is off the top of my head. This might be a warding stone that increases your armor class or allows you to deflect a magic spell or something like that. I've actually had some requests to kind of go over all of the loot, and I think that's something that is a little bit more lengthy, so I think I might do a whole separate video talking about the loot cards. Let me know in the comment section if that's something you're interested in, because there are actually a lot of different loot options. We've got, this is just some of them. I've got some in another bag too that we used in the last game, but there's a lot of different options, and this is something that's really going to change your games, because usually there's only at max 4 chests on any given dungeon. So you're never going to go through all of the loot. Even in multiple games, you're not going to get through all of the loot. So it's there's a lot of replayability in all of these. Ooh, that one. Well, that one's obviously a sword, right? And so there's a lot of weapons, potions, and you are limited. Like you can't have 2 weapons on a character, or at least that are revealed. So you can actually keep these face down. Like maybe I have a mage and they pull this really cool sword, but I want to keep it face down because maybe you're going to try to rush me with some other character. Well, on my turn, I can also take free actions, and free actions, you have unlimited free actions, but there's very few things you can do with free actions. Like you can pick up a dropped piece of loot, or I can flip over a piece of loot and say, aha, this is actually the sword of Crabbok, and it shoots crabs if you're at melee range, and now you're infected. No, but basically you can then reveal, oh, I had this sword actually, and now since you moved close, I'll attack you with it. So you can choose to like reveal those right away, or you can just wait till a following turn to reveal those. So that's kind of a cool thing that the loot system does. But so many things are really cool that you can get with loot. You can get special armor. That's going to be especially helpful on like a squishier character. You can get a bow, you can get shields, there's keys, there's potions. I believe this is that fireball potion that lets you know. So like, there's all kinds of really cool loot in this game. Now the game board itself is a double-sided foldable piece of cardboard, and it's going to have more of a darker shadow blue kind of area, as well as the more kind of golden dungeon on the other side. Now, these are both, I mean, typically in Dungeons & Dragons fashion, they are dungeons, and they're the only different options you're going to have. So every scenario is going to be using one of these 2 as the main layout. To add a little bit of variety, there are lots of different, pieces of cardboard and things that you can add to your gameplay. There's different like portcullises, and you have different walls and doors out of cardboard here, which they're usually double-sided. So this can be like stone or a different type. And these are going to add, like, oh, this is going to add a barrier that wasn't there on the last time. And so the scenario will kind of tell you how to run these. Plus, it does sort of allow you to, if you wanted to homebrew your own scenario and you ran through all the scenarios and you wanted to try something special, you certainly have that option as well. This rule set, I feel like is compatible enough for those creative gamers that kind of want to come up with something on their own. And so you can do that. There's also, of course, these portals that will allow you to kind of enter in one place and exit in another place. And that, of course, changes the layout of a map very much so. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to put them on the ends. You could even, if you were homebrewing, you could put one right there and one right there. And all of a sudden, these two areas are much closer together. But generally, you want to follow the scenarios because they're kind of designed and balanced for, for the play on that particular scenario. Every character also has a little cardboard base that you can use when that character dies. It's also very helpful, for example, if, let me see which is his. Is this one? If I was to do proxy this miniature for a different D&D miniature, it'd be helpful if I put it on top of here, so this way I'm reminded of which character he represents. So that was a very clever thought process into that. Plus plenty of different tokens that come in the game. You have tokens that have a white border, which means they're persistent, and then tokens that do not have a white border, which means they last until that character's next activation is complete. So they're kind of fleeting versus these that are going to stick around for a little bit while. And of course, you have different ones for typical scenario statuses, whereas some are character specific. The scenario guide is actually really well thought out. It starts out with a smaller battle where it's only 3 versus 3. This one is very similar to that demo kit that I had reviewed and did my kind of how to play video on. In that it's just a smaller battle designing about like basically for you to like do some killing, get some loot, and see who gets the most points. It'll tell you all the things about the setup. It'll tell you the AI for how the monsters are going to activate, what their targeting priority should be, because it's not always the nearest player. Sometimes it could be something like in this second scenario where you are trying to like save a prisoner, the monsters will go for them. In the first scenario, though, it's written very well in that it helps you do the first round. It actually does the entire first round of play for you and allows you to then finish all the other rounds on your own. So if you're a little confused on the rules, this is a really smart and well-written guide walking you through every single character's activation and showing you a variety of different things that can happen. And it's definitely enough to get you started. I wish more games had an opening scenario like this. It's very cool. But every different scenario that you have in here is going to build a little bit more on the last one. You can play these kind of as a campaign, or you can just do them as a one-off. If you're playing them kind of back to back or keeping notes, the one thing that you want to keep in mind is that it does say that like, okay, who won the last one, then they might get a bonus. So you'll, if you're just jumping into a scenario, you can just ignore that part or just roll for it. It's not really that big of a deal. So you don't have to play them all together, but there is a little bit of a narrative at the beginning of each one. So you might want to read the story if you're planning on doing the campaign. But they kind of build until this giant conclusion with the dragon. And what's really nice about this, and the part that I like the best, is after you're done with all of those, there are 3 more scenarios that are meant to be sort of your basic gameplay. Like if you were going to have a tournament with this game, it would probably be on one of these, because these are more of the standard game. You've got the deathmatch, you've got the contention, and the capture. And so these are kind of more of the standardized versions of the game that don't necessarily fall into a narrative scenario. So these are probably the ones that I'll probably be playing a little bit more often. So next I want to talk about the miniatures and the physical components themselves. There's definitely pros and cons to both of these, so I'm going to talk about them both at the same time. Now, the miniatures are pre-painted, so that's obviously a pro because a lot of people don't like having to assemble miniatures and then paint them. And this being a miniatures game, and I definitely see this as becoming a competitive miniatures game, because there's definitely a lot of strategy involved. This is a big entry barrier for a lot of people that don't want to have to paint minis. So the fact that they're pre-painted is a definite plus. However, they're not exactly, like, some of them are better than others, and so like some of their eyes are a little kind of like Rock Pirate Tricks right here has just like really, really big blue. Like it kind of extends a little bit outside of the like the eyeball on some of them. Some are really, really well done. You know, like I in my unboxing, we looked at like Lightning Dancer here, and I think like his armor and everything is really well done for a pre-painted miniature. It's fantastic. But then on some of the other ones, like the dragons, like he's got some parts that just look a little bit more basic, right? And so if you're, but then again, I think that's kind of a mixed criticism, because if you're an expert painter or if you want expertly painted stuff, you can always repaint these. But so overall, the components are a big plus for me. Now they are a little bit softer plastic, so some of these pieces can bend, which is, again, that's also kind of a plus and a minus. Sometimes things can get warped. Of course, there's always you can stick it in hot water if it does get warped. None of these are actually really warped. You know, even some of the softest pieces, like these swords here, are pretty darn straight. So they did a good job with the packaging and the shipping of all of this stuff to keep them, you know, nothing is broken. They're really nice as far as how they're packaged and how the durability of some of this stuff. I think the worst case is maybe this one axe got bent just a little bit. And I don't know if it's supposed to be that way, because maybe it's like like a gnarled staff, or if that one just got bent a little. Again, minor criticisms, but I thought that it's fair to point that out, since I do cover a lot of miniatures games. I had to talk about that. On the plus side, though, you also have clear bases with the names of the character on the bottom. This is a big deal for me. When I started playing Warhammer Age of Sigmar, I had so many brand new minis, I was afraid I was going to forget what was what. So I actually had to go and write the names of every model on the bottom of every single base. And so like having that done for me is huge, because I might not know who this character is at first glance, especially if I'm new to the game. So this is a big deal. I love that. It's got the faction symbol and the name. Really cool idea. Even the monsters have a thing, and it'll even like say Cobalt number 2, right? So they're numbered as well as the named. I also think it's really cool that the Cobalts have individual different sculpts for each one, and they could have just done like a generic Cobalt and made all of them the same, but they decided to go the extra mile and make them all unique. So overall, I'm very pleased with these miniatures. Even though they're not perfect, they're a good, I'd say they're probably a good 7 out of 10 for me. As far as the total package, and them being pre-painted is a big deal, because I'm already behind on all of my other painting. Now, as far as some of the cardboard components, these are kind of a mixed bag for a lot of these dials, because they are really functionally great. Like, I love what they're able to do. The gameplay function of these is magnificent. I love the fact that so many of these characters have, you know, the different ways that they gain XP. They have all this stuff that's written on the card. Everything you need is right here. There's no special upgrade cards. But, and then of course the dial being able to move and give you updated stats and everything is really cool. And I really love these, these cooldown abilities. I love the whole way that this works. It gives your characters so much cool stuff. However, these boards are a little bit thin, and I did have one of these that actually the wheel kind of came apart on me. I was easily able to glue it back together, and it works perfect now. But they're a little bit thinner cardboard. They feel a little bit bendy, for what they are. So it's thinner cardboard, thinner components here. Not a big deal, but it's just worth noting that. Still, the function's really good, and you've got all of your information right here. You don't have to keep track of every single point of damage on a character with extra tokens or anything, because it's all right here. Overall, really well designed. Although the cardboard is a little flimsy, it's still functionally very good. Let's also talk about these bits, like these walls, and the ways to kind of make the map different. While the base board is really pretty and has great art on it, these kind of don't feel great. This is maybe my only kind of less than 5 out of 10 for these, just because they're so thin. They almost you could almost throw them out. Like, they feel like they're really thin, and like they're the kind of extra little bits when you're punching out other stuff that kind of gets thrown out. I feel like I would want to upgrade these to actual like 3D printed walls or something like that. I think actually, if WizKids is watching, I think like a terrain pack for this game would be a really big selling point and add a lot of extra immersion to these maps. And that's another thing is too, I would love to see more maps in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not already working on more, because if you're playing this game as much as I plan to play this game, I'm probably going to get tired of these same 2 maps. And of course, you can always, you know, use your own or create your own stuff, but I kind of like playing it in the setting that it was balanced for and designed for. And so while these add great functionality to the map, they're just so thin, and they kind of you know, they're just not doing it for me as well. But I can understand why they decided to go with these. As far as all the other tokens and everything else, it's this thick cardboard. So I like the way all the other tokens work. I really like the loot system. The loot system is one of my favorite aspects of this game. You know, you've got, like I talked about, all these loot cards. I love the way that they are all, like, the symbols on the cards match all the tokens. And look at this, like this is an axe that, or no, it's a masterwork melee weapon, so it just gives you +2 to hit with all of your you know, axes. So like all of kinds of really cool stuff. So again, I'll probably do another video where we talk about all the loot cards, because some of these are just outstanding. Look at that, masterwork armor, +2 to your defense. You getting that in the middle of a game? That's awesome. Masterwork ranged weapon. Wow, everyone I've flipped over has been some kind of masterwork. They're not all masterwork, right? This one is vicious longbow. It's a whole separate attack. I got this in one game where the character didn't even have a ranged weapon, and so you know, and so all of a sudden now I do have and if you have a ranged weapon, you can use this one instead. You can pick which weapon you want to use. The S there means it's using your standard action, like most attacks do. And this one also allows you to crit on a 19 or a 20, right? So like all kinds of really cool things like that in this loot deck. There's so many really cool loot cards that are very fun and help. Look at the Potion of Fire Breath. Man, it just lets you shoot like this awesome cone in front of you. I love the loot. I love the way they did that. I also love the level up cards. The level up cards are a really fun way to kind of make your characters feel special as you are playing the game. The feel of the game is good. A lot of the scenarios are good as well. So final thoughts for Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught. I absolutely love the game. It's a good 9 out of 10 for me. Some of the components aren't perfect. Some of the components are just a little below the mark, but other than that, the gameplay more than makes up for it. This is the game I have been waiting for forever, and I didn't even know that I wanted as much as I did until I played it. I absolutely love the theme, the setting, the concept of a dungeon crawl where it's not cooperative, where 2 competing teams go into the same dungeon, both trying to plunder its loot, but also having to face off against monsters. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I love the choices that you have to make in these scenarios. Do I escort the prisoner to the exit? Do I protect my own team? Do I attack the monsters to gain XP? Do I try to level up before attacking the enemy team? Do I even bother attacking? So maybe I ignore the enemy team. Maybe I trap the enemy team with like a big wall of vines and and kind of mess with their paths to me and around me. There's a lot of really cool things like that happen in these games, and a lot of really interesting choices. Plus the loot and the leveling up kind of changes what you may have wanted to do and can kind of boost the character in a way in the middle of a game that you didn't expect to have them boosted. I love that. I love the miniatures being pre-painted, and there are also extra faction packs. So if you kind of play this and you kind of exhaust the 2 factions that are in here, there's definitely more content planned. So the fact that this is also going to be expandable kind of gives it even that extra mile. I also especially love the way the scenario rulebook is kind of built and kind of takes you sequentially through all the different mechanics of the game and gets you ready to play like the more serious deathmatch style games. I think it's so much fun. I think it's great. I love that they gave you special dice with it also. And these dice roll really well. I never felt like they were lopsided towards one way or the other. Although I do think I got a bit too many ones in that last game, Sean, if you're watching. but no, I absolutely love this game. It's designed by Nicholas Yu and Travis Severance, and brought to you by WizKids. Check it out. I'll put a link in the description below. It's going to be released this month, so stay tuned for more information. Again, we'll do another follow-up video talking about some of the different loot cards and kind of going through all of that. And I also have some, if you want to check out the unboxing, the how to play video, and anything else for Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught, as well as the different faction packs, I have a playlist so you can check out all that stuff. I'll put it over here. Big thanks to WizKids for sending this out. Also, big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this channel possible. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and may the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. So say we all. May the dice be ever in your favor, and Hakuna Matata.